The rules were written in red pen on a laminated sheet, and no one ever explained why. My name is Danny Reeves, and I work the graveyard shift at Pemberton Corporate Park out in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. It's one of those glass and concrete business complexes with 3 buildings arranged around a central courtyard. The kind of place that looks sterile and corporate during the day, but turns into something else entirely after sunset. The company hired me 18 months ago to sit in a little security booth near the main entrance and monitor the camera feeds on a bank of monitors that used to belong to some insurance company that went under. The job was supposed to be easy. Watch the screens, log any activity, call the cops if something looked wrong. Most nights, I just played cards alone and listened to talk radio until my shift ended at 6 in the morning. The previous guard, a guy named Earl, who retired, told me everything I needed to know about the job during my training. He showed me the monitor bank, the door locks, the panic button under the desk. Then he told me about the cameras, which ones to check every 15 minutes, which ones were basically useless because of dead pixels. When we got to camera 4, the one that covered the courtyard, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Whatever you do, don't stare at camera 4 after midnight. Check it quick, like the others, but don't look at it, don't watch it, just glance and move on." I asked him why, and he just shook his head and said the previous guard told him the same thing, and his predecessor told him, all the way back to when they installed the system in 1998. He said it was just the rule, and the rule existed for a reason, and I should just be glad I didn't have to know the reason. I thought it was some kind of hazing joke, some urban legend the night shift guys spread to freak out the new hires. I laughed it off and figured I'd check camera 4 whenever I wanted. Nobody tells me what to do. The first 3 months went fine. I checked camera 4 like I checked the others. A quick glance every 15 minutes, nothing special. The courtyard was always empty, just concrete and benches and those little decorative trees and planters that look fake even in daylight. Sometimes a raccoon would wander through or a stray cat, but mostly the screen just showed an empty parking lot under the glow of the security lights. I started to think Earl was just a superstitious old man who believed in ghosts, and I mentally filed the camera 4 rule away as one of those silly workplace traditions that make no sense but everyone follows anyway. Then, about 5 months into the job, I made a mistake. It was a Tuesday night in March, maybe 2 in the morning, and I was watching a rerun of some old cop show on my phone when I realized I hadn't checked camera 4 in almost an hour. I looked up at the monitor bank and glanced at the other screens first. The lobby of Building A, the parking garage, the loading dock behind Building C. Everything looked normal. Then I looked at camera 4, and I saw a figure standing near the far end of the courtyard, just standing there in the middle of the night, like it had all the time in the world. I froze, my hand still on my phone, and I just stared at the screen. The figure was too far away to make out clearly, just a dark shape against the lighter concrete, but it was definitely human-sized, definitely standing still, facing away from the camera. My heart started pounding, and I grabbed the radio to call the cops. But then I stopped myself because I felt stupid. It was probably just some employee who forgot something in their office, some night owl who came back to grab a laptop or some files. I looked out the window of my booth toward the courtyard, and I saw nothing. The courtyard was empty. I looked back at the screen, and the figure was still there. I blinked a few times, rubbed my eyes, looked out the window again. Nothing. Looked back at the screen. The figure was closer, I didn't sleep for the rest of that shift. I sat in my booth with every light on, watching the monitors, watching camera 4, watching the window. The figure on the screen never moved except to get closer. Each time I looked away and then back, it was a little bit nearer to the camera, a little bit clearer, though still too far away to make out any details. It never walked, never took a step. It just appeared closer, like time was folding in on itself, or like the distance between it and the camera was shrinking on its own. By the time my shift ended at 6, the figure was about halfway across the courtyard, standing near the big oak tree that marks the center of the plaza. I told myself it was a glitch, some kind of burn-in on the monitor, maybe a frozen image from some old footage that got looped somehow. I told myself that, but I didn't believe it, not really. I went home that morning and couldn't sleep at all. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that shape on the screen, thinking about how it never moved but kept getting closer, thinking about how the courtyard was empty every single time I looked out the window. When I came back for my next shift, I checked camera 4 immediately, expecting to see nothing, expecting the courtyard to be normal. The figure was there, closer than before, now only about 20 feet from the camera. I could almost make out the shape of a head, the suggestion of shoulders, though it was still facing away from me. I checked the window. Empty courtyard. I looked back at the screen. The figure turned its head slightly, just a fraction, like it was acknowledging that I was watching. I nearly threw up in my mouth. I ran to the bathroom and threw up in the toilet, my hands shaking, my whole body cold with sweat. When I came back, I avoided camera 4 for the rest of the night. I checked every other camera. I watched the monitors like a hawk, but I refused to look at camera 4. I told myself I was being stupid, that I was letting my imagination run wild, that there was a rational explanation for everything. But I also started to notice something else, something that made my skin crawl even more than the figure itself. The other cameras, the ones I was watching instead of camera 4, started to feel wrong. Not wrong like something was on the screen, but wrong like something was about to be. Every corner of every hallway looked like it was holding its breath. Every empty room looked like it was waiting for someone to walk in. I felt like I was being watched from everywhere at once, like the whole building was one big eye, and I was the only thing inside it. I lasted 4 more shifts before I broke. 4 nights of checking every camera except camera 4. 4 nights of feeling like the walls were closing in. 4 nights of not sleeping and barely eating. My supervisor called me on the 3rd day and asked why my activity logs were incomplete, why I wasn't logging my camera checks like I was supposed to. I told him the system was glitchy, and he said he'd send someone to look at it, and I panicked because I didn't want anyone else looking at camera 4, didn't want anyone else seeing what I was seeing. I told him I'd fix it, I'd be more careful, and he said okay, but he was going to check the footage remotely to make sure I was doing my job right. I sat in my booth that night with my heart in my throat, waiting for him to call, waiting for him to tell me something was wrong with camera 4, waiting for someone to finally explain what I was looking at. He didn't call. The system showed I was checking the cameras every 15 minutes like I was supposed to. But I wasn't checking camera 4. I was just glancing at it, the way Earl told me to, the way the rules said I should. And every time I glanced, the figure was closer. By my 5th night back, the figure was right in front of the camera, so close I could almost see its face, though it was still turned away, still facing the direction of my booth, even though it couldn't possibly know where I was sitting. I broke. I stood up from my chair, walked over to camera 4's monitor, and I looked at it. I looked at it for a long time. Not just a glance, not just a quick check, but a real long look. The figure was standing at the edge of the courtyard, maybe 10 feet from the camera lens, and I could see it clearly now. It was a man, I think, though something about the proportions was off, like the limbs were too long, or the torso was too short. It was wearing what looked like a security guard uniform, the same kind I wore, same shade of dark blue, same silver badge on the chest. Its face was pale, so pale it looked white in the black and white of the camera feed, and its eyes were open, wide open, staring directly into the lens, into me. It wasn't blinking, it wasn't moving, it was just standing there, staring at the camera, and I realized with a cold jolt that it had been staring at the camera the whole time, even when it was farther away, even when I couldn't make out the details. It had always been staring directly at me. I stumbled back from the monitor and knocked over my chair. I looked out the window, desperate to see something normal, something real, something that would tell me I was still in the world I knew. The courtyard was empty. The figure was gone from the real world, gone from the window, but it was still on the screen, still standing there, still staring. Then it smiled. I don't know how else to describe it. The expression on its face changed from blank to something else. Something that pulled the skin tight across its skull. Something that showed too many teeth. And then it took a step forward, directly toward the camera, and the screen went black. I didn't go to work the next night. I called in sick, told my supervisor I had the flu, and spent the whole day in bed with my curtains drawn, trying to convince myself that none of it was real. But I couldn't stop thinking about that smile, that step forward, that black screen. I got out of bed around midnight and drove to Pemberton Corporate Park, even though I wasn't scheduled to work. I told myself I just wanted to check the footage, just wanted to see what happened, just wanted to prove to myself that it was all a glitch or a hallucination or something I could explain away. The security booth was dark when I got there, but the monitors were on, glowing in the empty room like a row of ghost eyes. I sat down in my chair, the same chair I'd sat in 1,000 times before, and I pulled up the footage from camera 4. I scrubbed through the recording, going back to the night before, and I found it. The figure was there, clear as day, walking slowly across the courtyard, getting closer to the camera with every second that passed. I watched myself on the footage, watching the monitors, checking the other cameras, avoiding camera 4 like it was radioactive. I watched the figure stop and turn its head. I watched myself run to the bathroom. I watched myself come back and avoid the screen for the rest of the night. Then I got to the part where I broke the rule, where I walked over and looked at the camera, where I stood there and stared at the figure. The figure stared back. I watched myself stumble back, watched myself knock over the chair. Then I watched the figure smile, watched it step forward, watched the screen go black. But there was more. The footage kept recording after the black screen, kept capturing for another 3 hours until my shift would have ended. And in that footage, for the entire 3 hours, the camera was tilted down, pointing at the ground like someone had grabbed the camera and moved it, or like something had pushed its face right up against the lens, and the weight of it had caused the camera to shift. I couldn't see anything clearly, just the blurry suggestion of pale skin, just the dark void where eyes should have been, just the sound of breathing that wasn't mine, slow and wet and wrong. Then, at 5:47 in the morning, the camera angle snapped back to normal, and the courtyard was empty again. and the footage ended. I sat there in the dark, staring at the frozen image of an empty courtyard, and I heard something behind me. A footstep, then another, then another. Slow and deliberate, coming from inside the building, getting closer to the security booth with every step. I turned around, and the door to the booth was open, and the hallway beyond was dark, and there was nothing there. But the footsteps kept coming, kept getting closer, and I realized with a sick twist in my gut that they were coming from the direction of camera 4, from the wire that connected the camera to the monitor, like something was crawling through the cable itself. I didn't go to work the next night either. I didn't go back at all. I quit the next morning, told my supervisor the job wasn't for me, and I never went back to Pemberton Corporate Park. I threw away my uniform, deleted the footage I had saved on my personal hard drive, and I tried to forget. I tried to move on with my life, told myself it was just the stress of the job, just the isolation getting to me, just my brain playing tricks on myself. I got a new job, a day job, something normal, something in the sunlight. I stopped working nights. I stopped watching security footage. I stopped looking at cameras altogether, in bathrooms, in stores, in elevators, anywhere. I thought I was doing better. I thought I was getting better. Then, last week, I was at a friend's house, just hanging out, watching TV, when I noticed a security camera in the corner of the room, the little dome camera that monitors the front door. I don't know why I looked at it. I had trained myself not to look at cameras, had made a conscious effort every single day to avoid them. But something made me look, some pull I couldn't resist, and I looked at the camera and I saw myself on the screen, sitting on the couch, watching TV, unaware of what I was doing. And standing right behind me, just over my shoulder, was a figure in a dark blue security uniform. Pale face, wide open eyes, too many teeth. It wasn't there when I looked in the mirror. It wasn't there when I spun around. But it was there on the camera, and it was smiling, and it was leaning closer and closer and closer. I ran out of the house without saying goodbye. I drove to my apartment and locked every door, closed every curtain, turned off every light. I sat in the corner of my bedroom with my back to the wall, watching my phone, watching the reflection of my window, watching everything except the cameras I knew were watching me. Then I heard it. Not outside, not down the hall, but right there in the room with me. Breathing, slow and wet and wrong. I closed my eyes, and I heard it get closer. I closed my eyes tighter, and I felt something cold brush against my ear, something that smelled like old meat and copper pennies. Then a voice, not a human voice, something that sounded like it was coming from a throat that had forgotten how to speak, whispered in my ear. You looked. I opened my eyes, and the room was empty, and the breathing was gone, and everything was quiet. But I knew it wasn't over. I knew it would never be over. Because the rule was never to look at camera 4 after midnight, and I looked, and now it knows what I look like, and it knows where I live, and it's been following me ever since, staying just out of sight, just out of frame, always watching, always waiting for me to look again. My name is Danny Reeves, and I work the graveyard shift at Pemberton Corporate Park. At least, that's what it wants you to think. At least, that's what it wants me to remember. Because the truth is, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I ever was Danny Reeves. I don't know if there ever was a Danny Reeves. All I know is that every night, around midnight, I wake up in a little security booth, and there's a bank of monitors in front of me, and one of them is pointed at a courtyard, and there's a figure standing in it, and it's getting closer. And every night, I tell myself not to look. Every night, I fail. And every night when I see that smile, when I see those teeth, when I feel that cold breath on my neck, I remember the only thing it ever said to me, the only truth it ever told. You looked, and now you belong to camera 4.